发达国家新西兰为何对“一带一路”情有独钟
？Recently, China and New Zealand had signed the first memorandum of cooperation on One Belt, One Road initiatives.
There are many connections that people may not realize between New Zealand and the countries and the districts of the New Silk Road.
敢为西方先，新西兰在“一带一路”合作中如何突出自身优势？
Along the framework of One Belt, One Road, but it will also continue outside that framework.
解码“一带一路”专访新西兰驻中国大使麦康年，为您解读发达国家新西兰将如何奔走在“一带一路”上。敬请关注。新西兰位于太平洋西南部，领土由南岛、北岛两大岛屿组成，以库克海峡分隔，南岛临近南极洲，北岛与斐济、汤加相望。新西兰是一个高度发达的资本主义国家，其经济成功地从以农业为主转型为具有国际竞争力的工业化自由市场经济。世界银行将新西兰列为世界上最方便营商的国家之一。在今年6月刚刚出台的全球和平指数报告中，新西兰仅次于冰岛，是全球第2的和平国家。虽然身处西方发达国家阵营，但是新西兰在对华关系上从来都很有主见，迄今已开创多个第一。第一个同中国结束入世双边谈判，第一个承认中国完全市场经济地位，第一个与中国签署自贸协定。2017年3月27日，新西兰又与中国签署了一带一路合作协议，成为了第一个与中国签署相关协议的西方国家。新西兰为何在诸多领域敢为西方先？解码“一带一路”专访了新西兰驻中国大使麦康年先生。
Recently, China and New Zealand had signed the first memorandum of cooperation on One Belt, One Road initiatives, and this is also the first one of its kind since China proposed by this initiative with a South Pacific country. So would you please give us something about the procedures of such decision making and the significance of this agreement?
Well, thank you very much. The One Belt, One Road initiative is something that in New Zealand a lot of attention has been paid to over quite a number of years since President Xi Jinping first announced it. And in the context of Prime Minister Li Keqiang visiting New Zealand in March, we wanted to consider the sort of arrangements and the sort of agreements that we could enter into. And clearly one area that was of interest to China and was of interest to New Zealand was Belt and Road. So we discussed that primarily with the National Development and Reform Commission, the NDRC, and we reached agreement on an arrangement which sets out the basis in principle of our interest in One Belt and Road, and then suggests and says that over the next 18 months we should work out a program of cooperation for that. So for New Zealand it's an opportunity, for China it's a major initiative, and we're very interested in seeing how it will develop.
So what's your consideration of deeply and positive involvement in these negotiations? What's your relative advantage?
Well, there's a number of aspects to that. One is that I think the way the Belt and Road Initiative has been outlined also has an oceanic or a maritime component. So it's looking at old sea routes as well as old land routes, and clearly New Zealand is very interested in that side of it. Secondly, New Zealand as a country offers its skills, its expertise and its knowledge around the world. And part of the value of that is doing it in conjunction with countries which have a very different history and a very different economic background. So in that sense, New Zealand provides a complement to the economies and societies of the old Silk Road and the new Silk Road. And I should just mention, because I'm wearing this little badge today, so today is the 90th anniversary of the arrival in China of a distinguished New Zealander called Rui Ali. And he spent much of his time in China in Shandan in Gansu province, which is on the old Silk Road and New Silk Road. So this is telling us that there are many connections that people may not realise between New Zealand and the countries and the districts of the New Silk Road, and we're very keen to see how we can take those further through this arrangement, but also through maybe many other such cooperations as well.
Politicians from a country, including the ruling party and opposition parties, had initiatives or conducted a promoting mechanism. So would you please tell us some details about this unity in this field?
Well, our judgment in New Zealand is that the sort of businesses and companies which are interested in being part of this are more likely to be in consultancies or governance or advice rather than in construction. But that remains to be seen. We're very open to how this might be developed and how it might be explored. We were very pleased to be able to welcome Premier Lee Keqiang to New Zealand. And while the Premier was in New Zealand, he of course was hosted by our Prime Minister, Mr English, but he also met the Leader of the Opposition, Mr Little, and a number of other political and business figures. And all of them were very committed to New Zealand's relationship with China and to the role that China plays in the development of New Zealand. So within that framework, the interest in the Belt and Road Initiative is quite high.
Your country is the first Western developed country to sign Memorandum of Cooperation on Initiative One Belt, One Road. Do you think you will set up an example for the Western developed country?
Any government is going to look at what is happening with One Belt and One Road and is going to relate it to their own circumstances. So we don't set out to be an exemplar. People may be very interested in what we're doing, and I think that's so. But they have to make their own decisions, just as we make our own decisions about what will work for us and what will suit us.
与中国签订自贸协定，中国与新西兰经济优势互补。
FTA between our two countries is a comprehensive and optimizing agreement.
We have agreed to have an upgrade of that agreement.
解码一带一路专访新西兰驻中国大使麦康年正在播出。新西兰地处南太平洋，离“一带一路”主要沿线国家稍有些远，但新西兰贸易高度依赖世界其他地区，尤其是中国。中国与新西兰经济上优势互补，依存度高，因此也推动了新西兰更有意愿与中国加强各方面的合作。2008年，新西兰与中国签署自贸协定，成为首个与中国签署自贸协定的发达国家。2017年4月下旬，中国新西兰自贸协定第一轮升级谈判在北京举行，双方围绕多项议题进行了富有成效的磋商，双方确定今年7月举行第二轮升级谈判。
I was told that FTA between our two countries is a comprehensive and optimizing agreement. So how can we understand the optimization of this such agreement?
Well, it's a very timely question. So that agreement, the New Zealand-China Free Trade Agreement, was entered into in 2008. So we've now, through the recent visit, we have agreed to have an upgrade of that of that agreement, and in the course of that agreement, the trade between New Zealand and China has grown hugely. It's tripled, and China is now our largest or second largest trading partner, depending on whether you count goods and exports and a variety of other ways. So China's now a very significant partner. We want to ensure that the free trade agreement, which we regard as a very path-breaking agreement, will continue to be relevant in the next 10 years as it has been in the past. And so the purpose of the upgrade is to look at areas such as facilitation, such as technical barriers, such as the support that's given to businesses, and see how the agreement can be upgraded to reflect the changing environment. Both countries have entered into agreements with other countries since we agreed on our one. We're also both part of regional and multilateral discussions on trade. So there's a number of areas where we're looking to improve.
One Belt, One Road initiatives really, I think, is different and elastic mechanism of cooperation. Comparing with other kind of comprehensive or multilateral mechanisms.
To New Zealand's mind, One Belt, One Road is more a framework within which much activity can take place between the countries involved, between China and the countries of Central Asia, the Indian Ocean or wherever. So for a New Zealand business though, either the trade agreements or Belt and Road provide opportunities which they will want to investigate, and they provide stimuluses to perhaps get involved with third countries or other companies to do projects or to consult in areas where they may not have thought of that before.
目前，中国已经连续3年成为新西兰第一大货物贸易伙伴和第一大出口市场。2016年，中新双边贸易额超过200亿新元，约合970多亿元人民币，同比增长接近5%。2014年，两国设定了双边贸易额在2020年达到300亿新元的目标，约合1460多亿人民币。要实现这个目标，推动自贸协定的升级，扩大贸易范围以及推动双边投资，都成为助推贸易增长的有效手段。
国家主席习近平当地时间21号在新西兰总理约翰基陪同下，在奥克兰参观新西兰农牧业技术展，希望两国加强农牧业领域合作。习近平走到各个展台前听取介绍，并询问有关科研成果、产品质量和两国企业合作情况。
新西兰农畜牧业是传统优势产业，按出口总额统计，新西兰是世界第12大农产品出口国，其中羊肉、鹿肉和乳制品出口位居世界第一，羊肉出口占全球贸易额的75%。乳制品产量虽然只占到世界乳制品总产量的3%，贸易量却占到全球贸易量的33%。新西兰的传统优势如何在“一带一路”上继续得以发挥，这是目前各方都很关注的问题。
Your country is well known with its farming and animals husbandry in the world. As we know, traditionally, most of country along the Asian Silk Road, they also have a strong farming and husbandry, but in a very lower level relatively. So in this field, how do you to play a leading role to help them to develop together?
Well, I think there are two areas. One is that, in a sense, New Zealand's agriculture or animal husbandry benefits from being very advanced, very sophisticated, and able to produce very high quality food and food products. Those skills and techniques will be and are of interest to people in China, but also to the other countries that are encompassed in that initiative. And New Zealand for a very long time has, in effect, supplied advice on how to improve productivity, how to improve agricultural techniques. So we have reached an agreement recently with China on halal meat. so that the certification of halal meat in New Zealand is recognised in China. And we think that's relevant to consumers of halal meat in China, but also to other markets where that might be of interest to both China and to New Zealand. A second one, which is maybe a little different, is that one of our districts in New Zealand, Marlborough, has been developing a relationship with Ningxia. And part of that is because they are both grape growing districts, wine growing districts. And that's another area where New Zealand techniques and productivity can be used to benefit China. So once you start opening up the frame, you begin to see all sorts of opportunities which people didn't imagine before. And a few decades ago, there were not many grapes grown in Marlborough, and there probably weren't many grown in Ningxia. Now, both areas are developing that, and out of that, you have the possibility of contact and cooperation, which you didn't have before.
So would you please share us your experience of your cooperation with developing countries over the past decades?
Well, it's been a strong part of New Zealand's cooperation with developing countries to, in effect, take our techniques and our practices and seek to apply them in other countries. And I say seek because it's not always a perfect match. You have to adjust, and one of the things New Zealanders do is to adjust to an environment. So some of the areas where we have been looking at recently involve environmental technology. How do you farm and how do you make sure that you're also protecting the environment? This is a challenge for many countries and many regions. What works in New Zealand can be adapted to work in other countries. In terms of food traceability, we now invest a lot of time and money in being able to identify the sources of food that is consumed, and that's for its own sake, but also because it's a guarantee of food safety. And that's also something which we're very keen to be able to share with other countries, because it's about the farming is just the beginning of a process which ends up with something in a supermarket or in a restaurant or on somebody's table at home. And now consumers want to know that what they eat and what they drink and even what they wear, we want to know where it comes from, because we are a food exporter. We produce far more food than we can consume. So it's very important for us, but also for consumers in other countries, that we're able to provide the guarantee that the food we produce, whether it's infant milk formula, whether it's other dairy products, whether it's the meat, and your meat is very good too, whatever it is, that it's of a quality that now matches the very sophisticated demands of consumers both in China but in many other countries as well. So there's a lot of areas where New Zealand can provide assistance and support technically and in terms of management to animal husbandry and agriculture areas.
发达国家新西兰为何对“一带一路”情有独钟？
Recently, China and New Zealand had signed the first memorandum of cooperation on One Belt One Road initiatives.
敢为西方先，新西兰在“一带一路”合作中如何突出自身优势？
Along the framework of One Belt One Road, but it will also continue outside that framework.
解码“一带一路”专访新西兰驻中国大使麦康年正在播出。史诗电影与奇异风景支撑新西兰旅游业持续兴旺。
Most of Chinese learn about the country, I think, from the masterpiece of Hollywood's The Lord of the Rings.
And they're taking that experience, which is a very New Zealand way of seeing the country, and hiring a car and driving around.
解码“一带一路”专访新西兰驻中国大使麦康年，为您解读发达国家新西兰将如何奔走在“一带一路”上。 2004年，电影《指环王：王者归来》赢得了第76届奥斯卡奖的全部11项提名。 新西兰籍导演彼得·杰克逊一再走上颁奖台，将祖国的山山水水感谢了个遍。拍摄《指环王》动用了2万多名新西兰临时演员。要知道，新西兰的总人口也不过400多万。新西兰政府对《指环王》引领的电影产业一直关爱有加。2017年5月，新西兰政府宣布将会划拨3亿美元预算用于新西兰电影产业的发展。除了助推电影产业的发展，这一大力投入的背后，更是隐藏着新西兰政府借力银幕，打造电影旅游业大国的野心。事实上，电影产业对新西兰旅游业所起的推动作用显而易见。2015年，旅游业首次超过乳制品业，成为新西兰最大的出口收入来源。2015年，入境游客总人数为313万，同比增长近10%。中国则继续保持新西兰第2大客源地的地位。2016年，中国游客突破了40万人大关。
Most of Chinese learn about the country, I think, from the masterpiece of Hollywood, the Lord of the Rings. So very, very nice scenes and the landscape. And would you please tell us the tourism in your country?
Well, the Lord of the Rings films and also the successor Hobbit films were filmed in New Zealand because the director, Peter Jackson, is a New Zealander.
Yes.
So he has generated a very significant film industry for New Zealand, which has also given rise to a television co-production agreement with China, which is yielding some products. So I found that many Chinese people know about New Zealand through Lord of the Rings, and they're attracted by the scenery and they're attracted by the sense of remoteness. When I think Chinese tourists get on a plane and go to New Zealand, I think above all they want to see two things. They want to see the natural beauty of the country, and that they can see not just in the places where Lord of the Rings was filmed, but actually in a lot of other parts of the country as well. I think they're also quite interested in the culture of our indigenous people, the Maori people, because that's different from something they experience in China. So when people travel, it's about experiencing something different from what they have in their home, and New Zealand's distance is part of that attraction. It's not, however, a deterrent to Chinese people going to New Zealand. We have probably now, last year, about 400,000, so nearly 500,000 Chinese going to New Zealand, which is an increase, a doubling increase over just a few years. When I arrived here in January 2015, we had under 20 direct flights a week between mainland China and New Zealand. Now we're looking at going to 60 or 70. So there's been a very large increase in the numbers of Chinese who are interested in going to New Zealand and who are able to go to New Zealand. So what I say to them is, when you go to the places everybody goes to, which is Auckland and Rotorua and Queenstown, but go to other places as well, because you will find scenery and landscapes and beauty which you don't always even see in the Lord of the Rings. But you're also having a chance to experience a country which is very different from the country that you're coming from. And many Chinese are taking that advice, and Chinese are staying longer in New Zealand, and we're very happy about that. We're also very pleased that many Chinese now are coming as individuals or couples or families, and they're taking that experience, which is a very New Zealand way of seeing the country, and hiring a car and driving around.
新西兰房地产业是否面临严重高估的困境？
Do we have any special policy to encourage Chinese to invest in the real estate?
Apply to everybody who comes to New Zealand from whichever country.
解码“一带一路”专访新西兰驻中国大使麦康年正在播出。 旅游业的兴旺，加之发达的经济基础，催生出新西兰蓬勃发展的房地产业。地产业与教育、旅游业是华人在新西兰投资最为成功的行业。根据新西兰官方机构统计数据，在该国每年的房产交易中，约8%来自海外投资者，而在海外投资者的购房交易中，中国人约占30%。但2017年5月，高盛公布了一份报告称，新西兰房产泡沫严重，面临崩盘危机，未来2年内泡沫破裂的概率高达40%。这份报告在新西兰国内被各大媒体广泛转载和热议。那么，新西兰房地产业形势究竟如何？是否仍存在投资机会呢
？Do we have any special policy to encourage Chinese to invest in the real estate?
Well, our policies, generally speaking, are country neutral. They're not targeted at particular countries, but we're very keen to get tourists, and a large number of tourists now come from China. In fact, it's probably the second largest source of tourists after Australia, which of course is our next door country, and so that's quite natural. We have a lot of overseas students, and the largest group of overseas students is from China, and that's about 30,000 or so. New Zealand has a very open investment environment. We do have some areas which are subject to specific procedures, such as if you buy islands, offshore islands, or if the investment is above a certain level, but those are applied neutrally across all foreign investors, and much of the recent foreign investment into New Zealand has been from China, and it's been in quite a wide range of industries and sectors, so including waste management, including healthcare, including appliances, as well as in real estate. And in terms of real estate, again, the policies are country neutral. There is a lot of interest in buying, but the rules that apply to everybody who comes to New Zealand from whichever country.
I don't know if the room is enough for so many people go to there to personally to invest in real estate.
Well, I mean, New Zealand is a country with 4.5 million people and an area the size of Italy or Japan, so there's a lot of room. But the policies we apply, which are obviously primarily looking at what New Zealanders need, also encompass the fact that foreigners may wish to come and buy houses on land, and they apply to all nationalities regardless of whatever country they come from, whether it's China or India or America, whatever. So that's how we conduct ourselves in that space, and for any person wanting to come to New Zealand, they'll need to analyse the situation and decide whether it's sensible for them to buy there or to buy in China or to buy in some other country. To me, that is going to continue, and it will continue along the framework of One Belt, One Road, but it will also continue outside that framework because it's an enduring feature of China's economic growth that it now has that standing in the world.
一带一路体现了对开放的全球市场、减少贸易壁垒和深化各国联系的支持。以贸易立国的新西兰意识到，一带一路将会带来巨大机遇，并全力拥护这一支持自由贸易的倡议。如何对接一带一路，新西兰必定有着自己的考量。但可以肯定的是，未来两国在一带一路框架下必将开展更多务实合作，并且有着更广阔的发展前景。
There are many connections that people may not realise between New Zealand and the countries and the districts of the New Silk Road.